good segue here. A hill that I will die on. I think Jose Berrios is a legitimate ace, and I think this is the year he takes a big step forward. So he's been good, not great so far in his career.
Now, quantify legitimate ace, because to me, legitimate ace, that's a Cy Young contender. That's a guy who would be at number one on almost any rotation in Major League Baseball.
I think Jose Berrios wins a Cy Young award in his career. Okay. And this is the year that the window opens for the first time.
Okay.
Write that down, Ramie.
All right.
Here. I'm gonna literally take this pen and write this down for a final prediction. Okay,
I'll give you the play-by-play.
Cy Young Award. So just to back up a step, I remember when he was drafted, he was a supplemental pick back, 2012. And I remember talking to a couple Twins people and a couple scouts when I covered that beat. I covered the beat from 2010 to 2013. And I was on one of the side fields just down from where Judd is right now in Fort Myers. And I was standing on one of those chain link fence fields where that's the cool thing about Twins camp. You can watch practice just like you would watch a high school game. You walk up to a chain link fence field, you can stick your fingers through the mesh, and you can just watch these guys take batting practice and throw bullpens and play in B games. And I asked a couple scouts, of all these pitchers the Twins are bringing in, they're bringing in these hard throwing guys. They've got Kyle Gibson in their system. Whoever else, we're naming off names. Trevor May, they just acquired via trade. Of all these guys, give me the one that we should really keep our eye on. And multiple people kept going back to, at the time, I believe it was 19-year-old Jose Berrios. 3-pitch mix as a 19-year-old, mid-90s, movement, and a breaking ball that drops off the table. You watch hitters swing at that breaking ball. I mean, there's like GIFs of his breaking ball floating around Twitter. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you have that many great pitches and you throw in the mid-90s and you got movement and your stuff goes all over the place. It's like throwing a wiffle ball. You don't just walk in with command your first year in the big league. So He spent the last 3 years honing his command, honing his workload. And I think the window opens. If you guys look at a list of pitchers who broke through at the age of 25, and that's what he's going to turn here early in the season. 25 is a major breakthrough age for starting pitchers historically. And I'm not putting him in the same category as these guys. Don't get me wrong. He's not Pedro Martinez, okay? Well, he's got a lot of work to do to be Pedro Martinez.
A little bit, yeah.
Pedro Martinez, age 25, jumped from being a good pitcher from age 22 to 25, mid to upper threes ERAs, to being a Cy Young guy, age 25. Roy Halladay, borderline starter, decent guy, age 25, boom, Cy Young guy. Johan Santana went from being a part-time starter to being a Cy Young guy at age 25. John Lester, Aaron Nola last year for the Phillies. I could name 20 guys right now that broke through at age 25 because sometimes it just takes you a few years as a pitcher. So I'm super bullish on Berrios, guys.
And he's been good, too. So, I mean, this is not of that group that we talked about 3 years back or so, right? Buxton, Sano, Berrios. Berrios came up, and that first year he was choppy. At times he looked great. At times he didn't. But he's been good. And so for him to ascend to what you're talking about, Phil, is not like, oh my gosh, he's got to have a great year, because he's actually been on a track. And I think that the inconsistency that we saw his first year has certainly dissipated quite a bit, right? So this is not, if he does take that step and let's say goes from being what the Twins consider to be their ace to being a ace in the big leagues in 2019, it's not going to be shocking.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, just from what I'm hearing about Jose Berrios from people since I got here, that they think he can be that guy. But the reason why I asked Phil to quantify that is because sometimes within a market, you'll call a guy your ace because it's almost de facto. It's by default because he's the number one pitcher on what's an otherwise ordinary staff. But you guys, it sounds like you're saying he could be a true bona fide ace, the type of guy who, like I said, is a Cy Young contender, and you put him in almost any rotation and he'd be a number one pitcher.
I mean, put it this way. Right now, and I might be missing a couple guys here, but the American League starting pitcher pecking order, in some order.
Did you say pecking order, Phil Mackey?
That's right. I got a pecking order.
Wow, bringing
it
back.
Right? So I don't know what order but I know that Chris Sale is up on top of that pecking order. I know that Justin Verlander and Corey Kluber, and probably after last year, Trevor Bauer has to be considered in that mix.
Yep. Yes, agreed.
Luis Severino, after what he did with the Yankees last year, is definitely in that mix, and probably Blake Snell with the Rays. So there's 5 or 6 pitchers right now at the top of the American League starting pitching pecking order that are just there based on what they've done the last few years. I think Berrios belongs at the bottom of that group. I don't think he's.
You think he does now, or you think he's going to earn his way into that?
He will earn his way into that this year. I don't think you're going to look at him right away and say, "Oh, that's Chris Sale caliber dominance," or that's Justin Verlander first 30 starts with the Astros dominance.
Right.
But I think the combination of his work ethic, his pitch mix, and we can dive into this story before the show is over. The way the Twins are going about using analytics to make their pitchers better and to take guys who might have been average and bring them to be above average, and guys who were good and make them great, etc. I just think it's a perfect storm for Berrios this season. So I would be buying all of the Berrios.
I've seen those benefits firsthand, Phil, of what an analytics department can do for a pitching staff, because that Brewers pitching staff that I covered for years it's a group of journeymen. They don't have anybody, when you talk about in terms of talent and stuff, they don't have anybody in the league of Jose Berrios, but somehow last year with pitching coach Derek Johnson, and he's off to the Reds now, so we'll see how they handle that change. But somehow in the last couple of years, they've been able to take the Jhoulys Chacins, the Junior Guerras, the Wade Mileys of the world, and get like front of the rotation type of stuff out of them for at least stretches. But the key in that was, and it's funny because Dan Hayes had a piece about this that went up today at The Athletic, wasn't just having a good analytics department, but having a coaching staff and the guys who are sort of the liaison between that analytics department and the coaching staff and the players who makes this stuff digestible, so that you're not just, and we talked about this today on Touch 'em All, Judd talked about it perfectly, you're not just dropping a binder or a spreadsheet full of numbers down in front of these guys
figure this out.
and going, here, figure this out.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely true.
You're putting it in terms and ways that is digestible for these guys, and they know not just what they're doing, but why they're doing it. And I think that's going to be the key this year with the change to Rocco Baldelli, is to see if they can more effectively use what's coming from their analytics department and put it to use on the field.
Comparison, boys. I've actually thought of this for the first time today, but I think the comparison makes sense. Wes Johnson, Rocco, and the Twins with Gary Kubiak, Vikings. Because I think we get so caught up in this pitcher just stinks, right? Or this left tackle or left guard. And it's not that we're wrong there, but if you think about how teams now operate, they aren't necessarily operating on then pursuing an all-star rotation. They're not pursuing potential Pro Bowl linemen. If you think about it, what are teams doing now? Teams are sort of deconstructing and say, okay, how can we put the athletes that we have, or at least the ones who are competent? I'm not saying they're really bad players, but the pitchers and or O-line guys who are competent players, how can we put them in far more of a position within the structure of our system to succeed?
Yeah, and in fact, there is, well, the Kubiak thing kind of remains to be seen, right?
But I'm saying I think it's the same thought. I think we're saying these linemen all stink. They've proven it. And I think the Vikings are saying, hold on a second. If this zone blocking scheme, if the scheme that we're going to incorporate works, we're going to take, let's say, 3 guys off that 2018 team who weren't great and make them good.
Sure. And obviously the Twins front office and scouting approach, it remains to be seen if you can implement that in a way that leads to division championships, et cetera. And there's a glaring example of a one who got away that we're going to get to before too long here. But I do put the Twins in terms of what they're trying to do analytically in the same category as some of the other franchises that you would think of top of mind, the Rays, the Oakland Athletics. And I look at what the A's did last year with their pitching staff and think, okay, if they can take a group like Trevor Cahill, Edwin Jackson, and like this Sean Manaea, who's fine, but like just literally a group of dudes off the street and off the waiver wire, and win almost 100 games and have starting pitchers with rejuvenated careers. Imagine if you applied some of those same principles to actual top-end talent arms, right?
Yep.
Like Jose Berrios. That would be the main goal. Did we just blow Judd away with our takes there, or is he back?
No. I turned my mic off for a brief second as I shuffled papers and then turned it back on.
Judd had to rotate his tanning position.
Damn it, I'm a radio professional now, Mackey. You have to accept this. I know what I'm doing.
I miss staying
it's only taken 7 years.
I miss staying with you at the La Quinta Inn behind Waffle House. Some of my most fond memories of Florida.
You know what? I'm not gonna say a word because they might be a sponsor someday.
That's true.
They're great.
That's
they're
true.
fantastic.
Yep.
The people at La Quinta are
the La Quinta or the
fantastic.
Waffle House.
Oh, you know what? I'm all for everybody. Go everybody. Go any chain that wants to come to us and potentially advertise. I'm on board.
There are no Waffle Houses north of the Mason-Dixon, so feel free.
Doesn't mean
they
couldn't branch out. See, I'm always giving this thought. Dunkin' Donuts here now. Tim Hortons here now. Who says Waffle House can't?
That's true.
It's Judd Zulgad here for literally anyone that wants to put money in my pocket.